Hey guys, thanks so much for stopping by. My name's Austin. Today we are taking a look at the Marvel Legends Gamerverse Captain America versus Venom 2-pack. These are obviously based off of the characters' appearances in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. This is the only 2-pack from this wave that I'm planning on picking up. I would love to get the Wolverine 2-pack, but that Silver Samurai just kind of spoiled the bunch for me. I'll just wait for a single-carded release of that Wolverine that will inevitably come, probably with a different deco. But anyways, this 2-pack, I picked it up because it was kind of a no-brainer for me, and honestly, the more that I play with both of these figures and kind of mess around with them, the more I really do enjoy both of them, and I think this might be the best value for money pack out of the wave. I was kind of expecting Venom to be the weaker link, and while he's not quite as weak as I was expecting. But enough about that. We'll go ahead and take a look at the box before we start talking about the interesting stuff. So the box, I will say, somebody who doesn't really care too much about box art, I do think this is really, really solid. I love the kind of key art on the side. The figures look good, but also this kind of character select screen. I don't think that that's original to MVC2 because I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's specific to this. You get a really great MVC2 design. I mean, if there was any doubt, this kind of seals the deal. This is obviously based off of the game. Really like the artwork there. And then you get same on the other side with Captain America. Really like the logos for both characters. They did a great job. You get the Gamerverse on the top, and then nothing really interesting on the bottom. So that's all we've got really for the box. So now let's take a look at the figures themselves. So starting off with Captain America from this 2-pack, I am not really a huge fan of Cap as a character. He's just not really ever been one of the Marvel characters that I really resonated with that much. That being said, he's had some really great designs over the years, and this is no exception. This is very much like his classic look, but it is probably, I would say, the best interpretation we've gotten, definitely from Marvel Legends, but just in general, it really does hold up well against the likes of like a Mafex design. That specifically in regards to the sculpt work, the kind of translation of the design into 3D form, it really is impressive to me, especially for a Marvel Legends. I really love the color choices. I love the sculpt work on the musculature. He finally looks like an actual muscular superhero. I will say the original Cap, I have the Secret Wars version that we'll kind of take a look at later, also definitely had a good sculpt. So this isn't kind of shocking. We've gotten good Captain Americas from Hasbro before, but this, I was very surprised because I honestly got the 2-pack for the Venom, which is probably not what most people are getting it for, but I just really love that blue Venom look. But this one really shocked me, really surprised me, and I'm very happy with it. So yeah, I mean, aesthetically, there's just not really much to talk about on it. It just really looks good all the way around. You've got the peg hole in the back, but that's not really, you kind of have to. As far as paint work goes, I really don't see anything. There's just the slightest bit of scuffage on the white of the star, but I mean, other than that, I mean, the paintwork on the let me see if I can punch in real quick on the head sculpt. The paintwork on the actual head is exceptionally well done. I mean, the photo reel, we kind of expect it to be good, but I really do love this unmasked head. I liked the ones that came with Secret Wars 2, and we'll talk about the alternate head sculpt in a little bit, but the one that actually comes on the figure looks great, and the paint work across the board is just really solid. I really do enjoy just everything about it. I mean, I'm being very positive, but it's just true. I really like this figure from an aesthetic standpoint. So that's Cap out of the way. Now we'll talk about Venom. So Venom is obviously kind of, let me zoom out a little bit. He's obviously kind of the reuse one. He's not as much original sculpt work as Cap, but that being said, he's a lot more original sculpt than I was expecting. This is kind of based off of other reviews that I've watched because I don't actually have the like retro card, kind of the modern design that I think was originated from that 3-pack with Riot and Phage. I can't remember. It I know that there is reuse definitely in the legs, with the pinned legs, but the arms, the biceps, the chest. Obviously, this is an original head sculpt for that MVC2 look. Uh, Even the way that the spider is printed, it's kind of smaller on the back and doesn't go down into this part, and then it's bigger on the front. So a lot of what they chose to do, they kept the spider printing off of the butterfly joints forward and back, so you never break up that sculpt. The only breakage is from the crunch going forward, which that doesn't bother me. At some point to articulate a figure, you're going to have to break up sculpt. There's not a ton of paint on this guy, mostly just molded plastic, except for the head sculpt and the spider, and the fists. I will say it would be nice to have the little dots. I don't know why that was left out, but I would assume that was done because of MVC2's design. I would imagine that the art from that game probably doesn't have the holes. Either that or it's just an oversight from Marvel Legends, which, wouldn't be a first, but also a lot of Venoms have the little dots from Legends, so I would be surprised if they just screwed up on this guy. But anyways, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that. I don't remember MVC2's art from memory super well, and I'm kind of just reviewing these as figures rather than, anyways, the head sculpt I really love. I think it perfectly captures what he looks like in the game. Love the goop on the tongue. It's so nasty, but really conveys motion and really sells the overall look and gives that pop of color that an otherwise kind of quote unquote boring figure could really benefit from. The paintwork on the teeth is very clean. You can see a clear delineation between the tongue and the teeth. Very well done. The eyes as well. There's really no issue with the eyes. They're very cleanly applied, despite the fact that they're kind of messy looking. They're sculpted on there super well. The area where we kind of get into trouble with this guy is definitely the chest. If you can see there's a little bit of splotchiness in the center. It kind of seems like the paint kind of pooled there. We have a little bit of a scratch because of how thin this paintwork is. You can also see when the light hits it, and also just looking at it in person, you can just tell. It's not very cleanly matched up. It's cleanly matched up on this side, does really good, but on both sides, it's just thin. For some reason, the actual chest is good and solid, but here the legs just kind of thin out. They do continue through really well. There's that little bit there where the mold line is, which isn't a really big deal. And then on the back actually looks really good. There's some like kind of pock marks there, which isn't great, but that's kind of being brought out by being on camera and having the light shown on it. It's not very visible in person unless you really focus on it. So I would say, for a figure, and then the white on the hands is fine. I would say for a figure that has so little paint, I would have liked to see a better job on this. It really does. I don't think I'm being dramatic here. It really does take away from the figure when Venom's whole thing is the tongue, which they nailed, the eyes, which they nailed, and the logo, which for me, this is just a major missed mark. I mean, it's too noticeable. I could do with the slight, fade on the legs. That wouldn't really ruin it for me, but it's just how it's not matched up well. Just really disappointing. But other than that, great figure. I'm really pleased to see that they did sculpt so much new for this guy. And again, this is another example of the figure looking heroic, or larger than life. Venom looks like a tank, and that is how I kind of imagine him, especially in Marvel vs. Capcom, but also just kind of in the 90s style that this figure is coming from. Really, really like it, and I'm sure that we'll see a black and white version on this new body at some point. And I don't think I'll pick him up because, for me personally, I just really love the blue. This is it's always been my favorite look for Venom, despite only really being in that one game. But anyways, yeah, aesthetically, I've spent plenty of time yapping about both of these guys. Really well done, but some missteps that kind of do take away from Venom. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the accessories. In going over the accessories, there are some bright spots and some dim spots. I would say all in all, the accessories are kind of a disappointment for me personally, but not so much so that it ruins the figure. The first disappointment for me is the alt head for Cap. I don't really like screaming heads in general, and this one just really doesn't work for me on Captain America. It just looks goofy. I don't think it works as well as the stoic head sculpt, and I really prefer the ones that we got on Secret Wars Cap. This one just is a little bit too goofy for me, too much. I don't know. It's just very jowly. I'm not really going to use this. I used it for a few photos, and that was pretty much it. Then, of course, he's Captain America. He's got to have his mighty shield. The overall look of the shield is really good. It's very plasticky. You know, the red is kind of a soft red. It's honestly looking better on camera than I would say it does in person. It's a little bit more washed out in person. And then we have this awful clip system that I really don't like, but at the same time, I don't really have a suggestion for how it could be better. So, you know, it's pretty good. It's just ugly and bad, and it, you know, you kind of want to keep it hidden from view. I just said it's pretty good and bad in the same sentence, so I'm a professional. The shield is fine. I've heard people say it's small. I don't own many other caps. I think it is a little bit smaller than the Secret Wars shield, but also that shield is cracked and destroyed, so this is going to be my display shield because it's in one piece. Also, I kind of makes sense that the shield's a little bit smaller because you get this big shield bash effect piece. Really like it. It's very simple. It just clips onto the shield. I will say it doesn't clip on super easy. You kind of have to, let me see if I can do it on camera. Kind of have to, yeah. It's not, I'm complaining about it, but it's really more of a nitpick. You just have to slot it into one side and then just kind of fold the other side over it. And that's how it looks. Very well done, where you can still see the shield inside of it. Really like the streaks on it. There's no paint or anything, but I think it still sells the effect just as well. You could probably add a little bit of white streaks to add some more speed line effects, but other than that, extremely well done shield effect, or blast effect. I don't know what you'd call it. And then the only other thing you get for Cap are these two thumbs ups. Now, oh, well, that one's gone, but they're exactly the same sculpt. So, come on, let's focus up. Now, this is where my lack of knowledge is going to come in. I don't particularly remember Cap doing a thumbs up. I think I kind of remember maybe like a win pose. He does a thumbs up. I can't really remember. To me, when I think of MVC Cap, I don't really think of like thumbs up being a big thing, but you know, Cap is a generally like encouraging, upbeat character, so that works. But where it doesn't work is you have a thumbs up that either goes with a stoic, serious head sculpt or a screaming crazy man head sculpt. So when is that ever going to really work? They don't really fit for much of anything. The way that Hasbro kind of used them was him pointing to himself and like a "Hey, look at me" kind of thing, which is fine, but again, that doesn't really feel like Cap to me. To me, these would be used more as like a "Hey, good job." It might even be maybe it's an assist pose. I can't remember. Maybe if I was a better reviewer, I would have looked it up beforehand. But anyways, to me, these just kind of miss the mark, and the fact that we get no other swappable hands for Cap just really kind of ruins it for me. All you get on the figure are fists, which it's nice to have fists, but it would have been cool to have maybe a hand that could grab the edge of the shield, so you could do like a throwing pose, maybe a salute hand like what we got from Secret Wars, or the pointer finger from Secret Wars. The hands are swappable, but they're different colors, so you know, this is a more vibrant red than what comes on Secret Wars, so not the best thing in the world, but not the worst either. It's still pretty solid. Then looking at Venom's accessories, you get this exceptionally good head sculpt. I love this head. I think this also originated from the 3-pack, but you can really see, if I zoom in on the details, you can see how jacked up he looks. He's got bloodshot eyes and just kind of a slight darkness around the eyes. It just looks like Eddie is getting put through the ringer with the suit, and the way that it just is kind of clasping over him, the mouth showing through. I think this is an exceptionally good head sculpt, and it was a very good addition. Obviously, that's not really how we see him in MVC2. Usually it comes down to below the chest, I believe. But that's, I mean, how are you going to do an accessory that conveys that? So that works really well. Then the only other thing you get for Venom are the clawed hands. Very well sculpted. These are obviously reuse. Again, there's no dot for where the webs come out of. And, you know, they're good. I like the effect of the claws. They're well sculpted and they're asymmetrical, so you kind of get a different look for both hands, depending on, you know, what you're kind of looking for. It's just that these are the only things we get for Venom. I would have liked to see multiple different things, honestly. I would have liked to see his shield, which honestly is pretty big and maybe would have been too much plastic for this guy. But it would have been nice. You know, it's just a shield that just has his symbiote logo on it, and it looks really cool. I would have liked maybe, and this is again a lot of plastic, the heads kind of popping up out of the ground. I can see how that might be too much to do for a 2-pack that costs $60, but I just feel like more could have been done with Venom. Maybe a third head sculpt that doesn't have the tongue out. I don't know. I'm just a little bit bummed that all we got is that admittedly really, really good head and then just 2 clawed hands that are pretty simple reuse. But still, solid all-around selection of accessories. Not my preferred selection of accessories, but they get the job done. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the figure's articulation. Starting off the articulation on Captain America, they do some new stuff with this guy, as far as I understand it. He articulates better than Secret Wars Cap, so I'm kind of happy about that. He still has some of the antiquated he still has some of the antiquated Marvel Legends jank that I'm not really a huge fan of, but he also does a lot good. So we'll just go ahead and get straight into it. First of all, he is on a hinge joint for the head with just a ball peg. You know, he can go all the way around, so that's cool. He can bury the chin that far. Not too bad. Well, yeah, perfect. I mean, that's as much burying the chin as you want. Can look up that far. Again, very, very solid. That is what the hinge joint is for. It's the only thing it can do. You get a little bit of side to side that doesn't really look like much of anything interesting. I'm very much a big believer in doing away with ball hinges. I don't think they work on really any figure other than like Wolverine and certain flying characters that you can't engineer a good double ball peg. But you know, I don't really like it. I prefer to be able to put attitude on the head and be able to kind of, you know, turn it to the side. It allows for static poses to look much more dynamic. So kind of a bummer, but not the end of the world. It's kind of... So I actually lost audio for this rest of the video, so we're going to attempt to kind of pick up where I left off. We're talking about the butterfly joint here. It's a very expressive joint. It can go back pretty much as far as you would want a butterfly joint to go, and forward basically as far as you would want. I think that's pretty solid. It's a smooth joint as well. It doesn't give you too much work, but it also goes back to neutral well because of the kind of indentation on the joint. So that's good. You have bicep swivel. It works just as well as any Marvel Legends bicep swivel does. Then you come down to the elbow. It's a double jointed elbow, and it kind of requires a little bit of effort to get it where you want it. Mostly because of the glove. You can sort of finagle it a little bit. You know, if you work with it and kind of push the glove into place, as I'm trying to do here off screen really poorly. There we go, back on screen. It kind of brings into question the issue with the you know, that Gamerverse Wolverine. I was opposed to a single jointed elbow, but this double jointed elbow is about the same range, if not even a little bit less, but I kind of think that comes down to the glove. So again, I personally prefer double jointed elbows, but there are downsides to them. It's,
six one way, half dozen other, I guess. But coming down to the wrist now, it's pretty standard swivel, hinge, standard Marvel Legends wrist joint. Then we can go into the chest section. The ab crunch is kind of a standard, waist swivel with an ab crunch. It's not the best, it's not the worst. It goes back that far. Pretty solid. The white stripes and red stripes do a good job of kind of hiding the joint. So it's better than some Marvel Legends with the ab crunch. You get your swivel. There's some heavy detents in there on the waist. Not really what I prefer. It kind of impedes some control that you might want to get for dialing in poses. I prefer like a tight joint that you can work with and has a good level of tolerance. This kind of seems like a little bit more indentation than is really needed. But coming down to the waist, we've got really solid Van Dammes, what you'd want to see from any figure. I think that's pretty much as good as you're going to get. It comes forward slightly less than 90, but really to a point where, I mean, if that's not 90, it's a negligent difference. So very satisfying. The butt gets in the way, so that's it's not going to go too far back, but that's kind of standard with Marvel Legends. The forward's good. Then coming down now to the elbow, you do get thigh swivel. Again, something you want to see, especially with a solid colored figure like this. You're going to want to get as much articulation as you can, and this is not breaking up the look too much. Knees are double jointed. They go back about that far, which with the Buccaneer boots do kind of make sense as to why they would impede motion. That being said, the Buccaneer boots do allow for a boot swivel, which is always preferable. You always want to see that, especially when it makes so much sense with a design like this. So that's definitely a positive. Always want to see boot cut on a figure. And then the feet are pretty stock standard Marvel Legends feet. They hinge forward and back, and then front-facing pin for rocker. So just about what you would want to see from a Captain America through and through. The range is about what you would want. I think for the Captain Americas that are on offer, it's probably the best. Not probably. It's definitely the best that we've gotten. As you can see, I'm kind of pointing out the stripes. I think this is where I originally said the fact that they hide the articulation well, but honestly, they would hide a double ball peg even better. And the fact that Wolverine for the MVC2 releases got that, it would be really nice to have that. As you see, you don't get any attitude on that. There's no side to side. It is unfortunate, because if we're innovating, if we're changing things, it would be really cool to see those changes across the board. But all in all, really solid articulation on Cap, and for Marvel Legends, I'm pretty happy with it. Bringing Venom in now, he's pretty well articulated. Starting at the head, he can duck down that far. That's really solid for the big jaw and tongue that he's got. Back is maybe not quite as high as we would be expecting. Although, I mean, for a figure like that, he's arching forward is kind of the point that I was going for. But honestly, even for an arching forward character, he's doing good. Completely off camera, so that's really great. Really did a good job on that. He's got a little bit of attitude in his head, even though he is on kind of a lollipop. He can articulate well on his head. Then coming down to the shoulders, he's got butterfly joints as well. I'm a big believer in butterfly joints. I think that they add a lot of articulation to the figure, and this is a perfect example of that. Venom gets a ton out of those butterfly joints. And then talking about the elbow, I think, yeah, I brought Cap back in because I didn't do the elbow articulation, but he goes a little over 90, so real solid. Bringing Venom back, he has 90 degrees. I think I work on it a little bit because I'm pretty sure let's see, he's off camera, so yeah, he has really, really good shoulder articulation. It's pretty much as good as you can ask for from any kind of mass market figure. And that's because, as you can see, there is that kind of disc in there. But because it's all one color, because it's on the top, it mixes in really well. It's not visible. I think it's worth having. You have the standard bicep swivel. That's what you want to see from any kind of, pretty much any figure. But, then you got elbow, double joint. He's got big biceps. They're kind of getting in the way, but that's a pretty deep bend. And this, I think, is an example of, what an ungloved hand can do. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to see from any kind of double jointed elbow. So that, I think, personally makes me feel more confident in saying that double jointed elbow is the way to go. Going down to the hands, standard Marvel Legends hands, no big thing to write home about. Then we go to the chest. He has the kind of more modern reverse ab crunch with the diaphragm joint. I will say I think that this is the way to go for Marvel Legends. If possible, obviously, I want a double ball peg in the waist. I think that is the superior option, but I get that for Marvel Legends, for their price point, this kind of chest articulation is really solid. So getting into it, it will go side to side with that diaphragm. That's really good. That's one benefit that this style of articulation has. He can swivel there, so that's kind of where you get that swivel at. Full 360, pretty good. It does get a little bit gappy when you start to arch it backwards, but that's really not where you're getting most of the arch from. It's kind of where you're just dialing in your pose. But when you engage all of it, he goes back that far. When you engage all of it, he goes forward now that you've engaged all of it. That was just with the diaphragm joint. With the ab crunch, that's a really solid crunch, really good articulation on the figure. And yeah, he can go forward and back with the best of them. Then going down to the waist, he does not have very preferable waist articulation. It's super limited. I'm not really sure why that is. I'm not a sculptor. I don't design action figures, so I can't really say why, but I have definitely seen figures of this size managed better than this, so a little bit of a bummer. But he can kick forward 90. It's pretty much as much as you want from a big bulky guy like that. He cannot really kick back any because of the butt. Kind of a standard with Marvel Legends, not really surprising there. He's got the thigh cut, which we definitely want to see on a full, single colored figure like this. There's no real reason not to have it. The feeling of engaging it is awful. It's so thick and heavy to just try and engage that cut. It kind of makes me feel like I'm probably not really going to use it unless I absolutely have to, because it feels like I'm going to shear off that peg. So that's unfortunate. You see the pinned joints here. I understand the argument of pin joints, but it is gummy. I just feel like there's better ways to do it. But you get a double jointed knee, kicks back for a meaty figure like this, pretty solid. Again, this is really what you want to see from a more muscular character like this. I'm not expecting anything too crazy. And then coming down to the feet, standard Marvel Legends fare. Nothing too crazy, nothing to write home about, but it does pivots well, looks good, goes back, goes forward. Really good range on that. Pretty much what you want to see from a Marvel Legends ankle. So with these guys, I think they articulate really, really well, and they definitely stand out as improvements over the existing options for these figures. Obviously, with Blue Venom, he's not maybe the pinnacle, but in terms of articulation, they definitely make strides in improving in certain areas. But now we'll go ahead and get on to comparisons. Marvel Legends X-Men 97 Wolverine, and then the Secret Wars Iron Man. Kind of the time period appropriate designs. Obviously, this Iron Man is not really accurate to how he looks in MVC2. I think I'm kind of adjusting him here to just get him, yeah, because he had a little bit of a hunch to him. But overall scale on these guys is really good. I know there's been complaints about the Gamerverse Wolverine, and personally, I do agree with them. 5POA Reviews did a video that kind of showed how that Wolverine really is in a 7-inch scale, and I think that this 97 Wolverine matches the overall look and the scale super well. But to be fair to that Gamerverse Wolverine, the sprite itself is too big in the games, so it's kind of accurate to the source material that it's coming from. But this guy is definitely in scale in like a standard, comic book or 90s display. He fits in really well, but I also really do appreciate that guy. So next up we have, here's the Maximum Series Spider-Man, and then the Secret Wars Black Suit Spider-Man. Also, basically just Amazing Fantasy 15 Spider-Man. So if you have that version, it's going to match up well. Again, these guys scale pretty much perfectly. Spider-Man really should be like 5'10", I think, 5'9", and then Cap is like 6'1", I think, 6'2". So definitely really good. I think Maximum Spider-Man is probably the best scaling we've gotten. And then this Spider-Man is too small for me for like Secret Wars, but it is a much better, young Spider-Man, and he definitely fits in with this Venom really well. So really happy with both of these options. If you're going for Renew Your Vows in your display, then he's going to be a little bit taller than Maximum Series, but not to a crazy degree. They're basically on par with each other. But that's pretty much all I've got for these guys. Next we have the classic versions. This is Secret Wars Captain America, which is I think the 85th anniversary Cap. And then the Absorbing Man Wave Venom, I think is where he's from. I got him loose. He's the only Venom that I have from Marvel Legends in my collection. You can really see the difference in scale and everything, which kind of makes sense because there's a little bit of scale creep going on, but the Captain Americas fit with each other super well. The coloring is a little bit different. I personally prefer the Gamerverse coloring, but I do really like the Secret Wars coloring. I think that they both have their own value in their own ways. And I'm pretty much happy to have both of them in my collection. I really don't have many complaints between the two of them. I like the scaled look, and I'm glad to have one with scales. And then I think that the MVC2 Cap kind of makes sense for him to not have scales, because in that game he really didn't really have that. With Venom, the scaling is a little bit less of a factor here, because I think he scales exactly in line with like the King in Black or the Amazon multi-pack release, the retro carded Venom. He's pretty much on par with that. This Absorbing Man Venom is smaller. He might be more with like a McFarlane style Venom if that's what you want. You might not like this bigger, bulkier guy, but for me, this is exactly what I want out of a Venom, and I think it's pretty much perfect for me, and I won't be holding on to this guy anymore. So that's all I've got for the comparisons. We'll go ahead and wrap it up.
In conclusion, I think the more that I interact with this 2-pack, the more I feel like it does justify its price for the most part. Going into it, I was kind of expecting Venom to be a little bit phoned in. I was figuring he would just be pure reuse from the kind of existing mold with just a new head and obviously a new colorway. That turned out to really not be the case, and I'm really happy with the kind of reworked sculpt. I think that they took everything that worked about the existing sculpt and just kind of added on more to make him bulkier, more menacing, and definitely more 90s, which is really what I was hoping for from this figure. And then Cap, goes without saying, it's a really good figure. It's probably the best Cap we've gotten from Marvel Legends. The only thing I would say is, that the Secret Wars version has better hand options and better facial options. And then if you like the sculpted on scale look, that's obviously not here in this figure. So I'm kind of happy to have both designs in my collection because I really do like both for different reasons. But yeah, I think they both have their value. The big thing where I think Hasbro cheaped out is in the accessories. As I touched on, you get better hands and heads for Cap in the Secret Wars figure, and we've seen better hand options. The thumbs up options just don't really work for either of the head sculpts. The weird screaming face does not work. It doesn't look good in my opinion, and then I also just don't really prefer screaming faces. I would have preferred maybe a happier expression or some different hands to really sell it. I do really like the effect part that you can put on the shield, but then when you get to Venom, all you get is a admittedly great alt head. I really do love the kind of partially unmasked head sculpt, but then other than that, you just get the claw hands as alternate. So it would have been really nice to get some other options. He has abilities in MVC2 that are pretty iconic, and it would have been nice to see those reflected. It would have been cool to have a shield. It would have been cool to have the kind of weird tendril things that pop up out of the ground. I do understand that his effects in the game are pretty large, and they would have required a pretty good bit of plastic, so I can kind of see why there may have been some, concerns about adding those. But when you consider the fact this is a $60 pack, before shipping and all that, you're paying $30 per figure. I don't think that at their most basic they justify that price tag. This is another example of Hasbro, giving us some really great figures, but still not justifying their price. And so I'm happy with it. I'm okay with it. If both of them are $5 cheaper, if the pack as a whole was $50, I wouldn't be saying any of these, and I would be personally rating this figure set a lot higher. But that's not where we're at, and unfortunately that's kind of not where collecting as a hobby is probably going to be. These companies need to make their money and want to make money, and it's going to be, there are going to be concessions made in different areas. With this 2-pack, I think the concessions made are understandable and acceptable for the most part, but I do a rating system. It goes first grade, high grade, real grade, master grade, perfect grade, kind of a holdover from Gundam model kits. With this one, I feel like I have to go real grade. It's not doing anything crazy out of the realm of what we've seen. They're not reinventing articulation schemes. These are really, really good versions of these characters, and they're worth picking up, but they're not reinventing the wheel, and they're not justifying their price. So for that reason, I don't really feel good about giving it master, or definitely not perfect. So I think real grade is fair. That's definitely not to say that these figures are not worth picking up. I do recommend them. Real grade does not mean that I don't recommend. So hope you guys enjoyed the review. Leave a comment. What do you guys think about this kind of 2-pack system that Hasbro's doing with this MVC2 thing? I like it overall, but this is the only pack that I'm going to be picking up because they're the only 2 figures that I really want both of. Another thing that would have been neat is if the background, the background of the box, you can take it out and you get that kind of training stage look, which is really neat, but it would have been cool to have maybe individual backgrounds for each 2-pack instead of just kind of, if you're picking up all 3, then you're just going to get the training stage background 3 times. But also, I don't really, I don't have space in my display for it anyways, so no big deal on that front, but it was just something I was thinking about that I thought I'd bring out. So hope you guys enjoyed, and hope you guys have a good one.